hello everybody, and welcome to our first sociology video that we've posted here on the Mr. Plaza channel. This first sociology video is going to focus on the concept of deviance, okay? Looking at why people break social norms. Okay, we've spent quite a bit of time talking about culture and why we have norms in place. Now we're going to look at why people decide to break those norms. We call that deviance. Okay, we see two people on this screen that are committing deviant behaviors. We have a guy who's picking his nose, and then we have a woman in a mugshot picture who clearly did something to upset the police. Okay, both of these behaviors are considered to be deviant, but why is that? Where does that come from? That is the question we're going to answer today. So overall, why are people deviant? Why are they like our friend the photobomber here? Okay, why do they do things that go against the norm? And we're going to look at some different examples of that as we go through. Okay, so what is deviance? We're going to give you kind of an overall definition of deviance to get you started here. Very simply, it's any behavior that departs from a societal or a group norm. In other words, you're violating a social norm. That's considered deviant. Okay, now please remember from the start here that just because you're doing something deviant doesn't mean you're doing something illegal. Okay, a crime and a deviant behavior can be two different things, and that's something that we'll get to as you move forward throughout this unit. Okay, but this is kind of our general definition. Okay, and there are two types of deviance, two broader categories of deviance that we see in our society. The first is called negative deviance. This is the one that you guys are probably most familiar with. This is when people underconform to a norm. Okay, so you see this person up here in the top right, this kid in school, sleeping on his desk. This is considered to be negative deviance. He is underconforming to the norm. The norm in school is that you stay awake, you listen to your teacher, you take notes, you pay attention. This student is not doing that. He is not living up to the social norm, so he is exhibiting negative deviance. This woman here on the bottom here that I'm sure part of this picture drew you to, this woman here at the bottom is actually exhibiting something called positive deviance. And this is when we overconform to social expectations. We go kind of above and beyond what's expected. Now this woman clearly is over-exaggerating parts of her body. But if you think about our society, we think that women should be a certain way. That an ideal woman has this measurement here, this measurement there. They have more curves and things like that. Okay, that's considered to be kind of the norm for women. This woman is kind of taking it to a ridiculous level. Okay, she's gotten so many breast implants that, I don't even know how she can stand up. Okay, but that's considered positive deviance because she's overconformed to this idea that women are supposed to be curvy. Okay, I hear she's planning on getting another one too, but ugh. Okay, the other example I'm going to give you here is also with body image, but it's this idea that we find skinnier people to be desirable in our society. Okay, we think people should be fit, they shouldn't be fat, whatever. Okay, so if someone is fat, if someone is obese, that's considered negative deviance because they're not living up to the norm of being skinny. On the other side of that, people who are anorexic are considered to be exhibiting positive deviance because they're overconforming. They're not eating. They're becoming too skinny. Okay? There's that. And as we're going to see over the next few days, deviance isn't always bad. Okay? We've talked about bad behaviors here, but positive deviance can also relate to things that people do that make a positive impact on the world and that aren't necessarily expected of them. And we'll go over some examples of those later. Okay? Along with this, we have something called social control. How do we make sure that our norms are enforced? Okay? We do that through social control. In other words, our formal and informal means of enforcing norms. And we do this in a couple different ways. Okay? Mostly we do this through the idea of sanctions. We have rewards or punishment that can encourage conformity. To give you an example, most people don't steal or don't kill because they're afraid of the sanction that's going to be placed on them. They don't want to go to jail. They don't want to get fined, whatever. However, we also learn what you should do because we get rewarded for it. Okay, if you do something, we learn that we're supposed to get good grades in school because we get rewarded with maybe like a cake from your mom, or maybe a high five from your friends, something like that. Okay, so those types of things encourage conformity to our norms. This idea of control theory that's here. We have both internal and external controls that work against our tendency to deviate. Sociologists believe that we as humans have a natural tendency to go against established norms, but there are two things that stop us from doing that: internal and external controls. Internal controls mean that you don't do something because you know it's morally wrong. So I don't kill someone because I know that it's morally wrong to kill somebody. Something inside me is saying, hey, don't do this, and it's stopping me from being deviant. On the other side, and as we know in this society, we have people who don't have the best internal controls, so they require an external control or sanctions to stop their deviant behavior. So again, if someone doesn't know it's morally wrong to kill, we punish them, or we show them that they will be punished if they do that behavior. So you'll go to jail, you'll get fined, you might even get the death penalty. Those are considered to be external controls. We also have something called the strain theory. And this is the idea that social pressures and social constructs influence our deviant behavior. Okay, basically our society has created these norms and also created the ideas of deviance. A guy named Robert K. Merton created a deviance typology here, and it kind of gives you a visual representation of what we're talking about. These two terms that are coming up here on the right, very, very important to understand this idea. According to Merton and the strain theory, we as a society have created both goals and acceptable means of achieving those goals. Okay? So I think most of us can agree that what we see here under cultural goals is pretty common for everybody here in this country especially. We want to have a family. We want to have a home. We want to have enough money to afford luxuries like a car or go on vacations, have a good career, and basically live a long life. Those are things that we consider to be cultural goals. Our society has also defined the means to get there. We say that to achieve those goals, you have to get a good education, you have to work very hard, you have to have at least some talent, and there has to be some kind of sacrifice you make in order to get yourself there. Okay? So when you see on this typology chart that we have means and goals, this is what we're talking about. And under each of these, we see another term that's going to describe people who fit into each of these sections. And we're going to get in more detail with those right now. Okay, the first part of that chart talks about something called conformity. Okay? And the basic definition of that is when people accept the cultural goal as well as how you're supposed to get to that goal. So they accept the goal and the means. Okay? People who are wealthy, most people, obviously, conform by being successful by the appropriate means. So if you're rich, we'd like to think that you got rich because you got a good education, because you worked really hard, etc. Now that's not always the case, but that's what we say. So if you do that, you've conformed. Okay? Poor people can also conform because they still want the same thing, they still want that success, and they still continue to go about the appropriate means of getting it. They're just not getting there as quickly. Okay? Now, in a school setting, the best example I can think of is that every single person in here who's taking notes and paying attention is conforming. Why? Because you have the goal in mind that you want to get an A, and you're going to get an A by taking notes, by listening to the teacher, and by studying. Okay? That's considered behavior that is conforming. Okay? So you've accepted the goals and you've accepted the means. The most common type of deviant behavior we see, though, is called innovation. And this is when someone still wants to achieve the goal, but they don't want to go through the appropriate means to get it, our socially accepted means of getting there. Okay? The best examples that we can think of are robbers, drug dealers, or any other criminal behavior that gets you money. Okay? You could also think of this in school as someone who cheats on a test. They want to get the A, but they don't want to put in the same amount of work. They don't want to study. They don't want to ask for help. And so instead, they just cheat off of someone's paper. That's considered innovation. Okay? And this is the type of deviance that we see the most. Okay? People that still want to be rich, they still want to be wealthy, but they don't want to go about the legal means of doing it. The next type is called ritualism. And this occurs when an individual rejects the goal. They don't really work for the success, but they still continue to use legitimate means. I call this going through the motions. And maybe you've had a teacher like this before. Okay? People who go through the motions without really believing in the process. Okay? This teacher here at the top, I don't know if you've ever seen Ferris Bueller before, but he doesn't really care if the kids are paying attention. He doesn't really care if they're learning. He doesn't really care if he's getting through to them. But he still shows up every day and just kind of delivers the material. That is someone who is engaging in ritualistic behavior. Okay, so again, teacher that does not really have any concern for the students or the quality of teaching. The next kind is called retreatism. This is when the person rejects both the means of getting success and the goal of success itself. Basically, they've dropped out of society. Okay, these are people like Skid Row alcoholics, people like drug addicts, people like the homeless. Okay, these are people who, again, who have failed at something. They're not really trying to get that success anymore. Okay, and they don't really believe in that goal anymore. They've kind of just dropped out. Okay, they're not successful by either legitimate or illegitimate means. They kind of drift through. The final kind of deviant behavior that we're going to look at today is rebellion. Okay, and rebellion is a term that I hear quite a bit in a high school especially. Oh, this person's rebel, that person's rebel, that person got her nose pierced, that person got a tattoo. Okay, that's what we consider to be rebellious, but really if we think about it in terms of this, it's not rebellion. A true rebellion happens, a rebel happens when the person rejects both the success and the approved means of achieving it. Okay, they reject it, and in fact, they substitute their own set of goals and their own means of getting it. Most oftentimes, rebellion is violent. They substitute violent means. And if you think about it, our society does not really say that violent means are okay for doing a whole lot of things. Okay? Really good examples of this are like street gangs. Okay? Street gangs, a lot of times, deliberately violate the law. They threaten the cops. Sometimes they get violent with the cops. They might even create their own currency. All right? So again, they've totally just rejected what society has come up with, and they've substituted their own ideas of what they should be. Okay, these people are considered to be true rebels. This is also why we call, like, the colonists in the American Revolution rebels. They substituted their own means in order to get change against the British. Okay, they were violent. They didn't follow the laws that the British said. So those people were rebels. People who wear mismatching colors really are not rebels. Okay, so at this point, we've kind of just gone over some key terms, some key ideas of deviance. As we move forward throughout this unit, we're going to look at some more, and we're going to look at some specific examples of these behaviors in action. Okay? Now, at this point, you can stop, you can rewind, you can review any information you have, but please be ready to discuss this over the next few days. All right, thank you guys. Have a great day.